Alice Baker stared out the viewport of the transport ship as it approached Centauri Prime. The massive space station that housed the Galactic War College gleamed like a silver star against the backdrop of swirling purple nebulae. Her heart pounded in her chest. She was about to become the first human to attend the most prestigious military academy in known space. The transport docked smoothly at one of the station's many arms. Alice gathered her few belongings and followed the other new cadets toward the processing center. She tried not to stare at her fellow students. There were tall, willowy Altarians with their iridescent skin, bulky Cronus warriors covered in natural armor plates, and even a few ethereal Mirians who seemed to float rather than walk. "Human Cadet Baker, please step forward," called a bored-looking administrator with 4 arms and purple scales. "Your documentation requires additional verification." Alice approached the desk, keeping her back straight and chin up like she'd learned at the Earth Space Academy. "Is there a problem with my credentials?" The administrator's upper set of eyes blinked slowly. "No problem. We simply have additional protocols for less advanced species." The slight pause made it clear exactly what the administrator thought of humans. After what felt like hours of extra scanning and questioning, Alice finally made it to her assigned quarters. The room was small but efficient, with strange curved walls that seemed to be standard architecture for the station. Her roommate hadn't arrived yet, so she took the time to unpack and settle in. A chime sounded through the room. "All new cadets report to the main auditorium for orientation in 30 minutes, announced a melodic voice. The auditorium was enormous, with seating arranged in a spiral pattern that accommodated the various sizes and shapes of the different species. Alice found herself seated between a crystalline being that hummed softly and a 4-armed cadet who kept shooting her curious glances. Dean Zexthera floated onto the stage, his tentacles rippling with patterns of light that drew everyone's attention. The ancient Mirian was legendary for his strategic brilliance in 3 major galactic conflicts. "Welcome, new cadets, to the most challenging program in known space." His voice resonated in their minds through the standard telepathic translators. "You represent the finest tactical minds from your respective worlds. Here you will learn to think beyond the limitations of your species, to understand warfare on a cosmic scale." The dean's glowing eyes swept across the audience, pausing briefly on Alice. "Some of you come from cultures with long histories of space combat. Others are relatively new to the galactic community. All of you have equal opportunity to excel or fail." After orientation, Alice headed to her first class, Advanced Spatial Dynamics. She found a seat near the front, ignoring the whispers and stares from her classmates. The instructor, a Cronus veteran named Commander Vax, began by bringing up a holographic display of a complex space battle. "Analyze this scenario," he rumbled. "What would be your first tactical response?" Several tentacles and hands shot up. Alice studied the display carefully, noting the positioning of the ships and the nearby asteroid field. Something about it reminded her of an old Earth naval battle she'd studied. After several students gave answers focused on standard attack patterns, Alice raised her hand. Commander Vax's armor plates shifted in what might have been surprise. "The human cadet has a suggestion." "Yes, sir," Alice said clearly. "The scenario reminds me of the Battle of Midway from Earth's history. Instead of engaging directly, I would use the asteroid field to split the enemy fleet and attack their supply lines first." The classroom fell silent. Commander Vax stepped closer to her desk, his massive form looming over her. "Interesting. Explain your reasoning." Alice stood and walked to the hologram. "In space, like on an ocean, supply lines are crucial. The enemy fleet here is too powerful for a direct confrontation, but their support ships are vulnerable here and here." She pointed to specific positions. "By forcing them to divide their forces around the asteroid field, we could isolate and eliminate their logistics ships, stranding their main fleet without resources." Commander Vax's armor plates shifted again, this time in what appeared to be approval. "A surprisingly sophisticated analysis. Perhaps there is hope for your species after all." The rest of the day passed in a blur of classes. Alice found herself struggling with some concepts but excelling at others. Her experience with Earth's naval history gave her unique insights into three-dimensional combat that seemed to surprise her instructors. That evening, exhausted but satisfied, Alice returned to her quarters to find her roommate had arrived. The Altarian cadet was arranging glowing crystals on her side of the room. "Hello," the Altarian said, her skin shimmering with greeting patterns. "I am Lyra. I was concerned when I learned I would room with a human, but I heard about your performance in Commander Vax's class. Perhaps we can learn from each other." Alice smiled, relieved at the friendly overture. "I'd like that. There's so much I don't know about space combat." "And there's much we don't know about human warfare," Lyra replied. "Is it true your species fought battles on the surface of your world's oceans?" As Alice explained basic naval concepts to her fascinated roommate, she noticed Dean Zixthera floating past their open door. The ancient Mirian paused briefly, his tentacles glowing with interest as he observed their interaction. The next morning, Alice found a message waiting for her. "Cadet Baker, report to my office after your classes. Dean Zixthera." Throughout her classes that day, Alice wondered what the dean wanted. Had she done something wrong? Was her unusual tactical analysis causing problems? When she entered the dean's office that evening, she found him studying a hologram of Earth's naval battles. His tentacles swirled with complex patterns as he turned to face her. "Cadet Baker," his mental voice was gentle but intense. "Your species has something rare in the galaxy, a history of fighting in 3 dimensions on your own world. Your oceans forced you to think in ways that many spacefaring races had to learn much later." Alice stood at attention, uncertain how to respond. "I have a special assignment for you," the dean continued. "I want you to work with instructors from different species, comparing Earth's naval tactics with various space combat doctrines. Your perspective could be valuable to all of us." "Thank you, sir," Alice managed to say. "I won't let you down." The dean's tentacles glowed brighter. "No, I don't believe you will. Humanity's greatest strength is not your technology or your physical capabilities. It's your ability to adapt, to take concepts from one situation and apply them to another. We'll be watching your progress with great interest." As Alice left the dean's office, her mind was spinning with possibilities. She wasn't just here to learn. She was here to teach as well. Her species' unique history might help shape the future of galactic warfare. Back in her quarters, Lyra was waiting with several other cadets from different species. "We heard about your special assignment," her roommate said, skin glowing with excitement. "Will you teach us about human naval tactics?" Looking at the eager faces of her alien classmates, Alice felt a surge of pride. Maybe humans weren't as primitive as everyone thought. Maybe their primitive history was exactly what the galaxy needed. She pulled up a hologram of the Battle of Trafalgar and began to explain how Admiral Nelson's tactics could be applied to space combat. The other cadets gathered around, their various appendages taking notes as she spoke. Outside the window, the purple nebula swirled against the black of space, and Alice Baker, the unexpected cadet, began to teach the galaxy about the art of war. 3 months into the academic year at the Galactic War College, Alice Baker was no longer just the human cadet. Her innovative approaches to tactical problems had earned her respect among many of her peers, though some still viewed humanity as primitive upstarts. During a morning tactical simulation, Alice was paired with a newly arrived student, another human named Kevin Hughes. He had transferred from the Mars Defense Academy, bringing fresh perspectives from Earth's first colonial military installation. "Cadet Baker," Commander Vax announced, "you and Cadet Hughes will demonstrate the Rigel scenario." His armor plates shifted, and what the class had learned was his version of a challenging smile. The holographic simulation sprang to life around them. A massive fleet of enemy ships surrounded a small defensive force protecting a space station. The odds seemed impossible, exactly the kind of scenario Commander Vax loved to use. Kevin glanced at Alice. "I heard about your naval warfare applications. Got any ideas?" Alice studied the holographic battlefield. "Look at the star's gravitational field. if we time it right. They worked quickly, programming their ships to use the local star's gravity well in ways that made the alien students murmur in confusion. The defensive fleet split into smaller groups, each using the gravitational forces to slingshot around the star at precisely calculated angles. This is not standard doctrine, Commander Vax observed, his voice rumbling with interest. No, sir, Kevin replied. We're applying principles from solar sailing combined with old Earth submarine warfare tactics. The simulation played out as their ships used the star's gravity to gain tremendous speed while consuming minimal fuel. The enemy fleet, following standard combat protocols, found themselves pulled out of formation trying to pursue the smaller groups. Alice's fingers flew across the controls. Now, Kevin. Their ships emerged from their slingshot maneuvers at unexpected angles, catching the scattered enemy fleet in a series of devastating crossfires. Within minutes, the supposedly unwinnable scenario was over. Their small fleet had achieved victory with minimal losses. The classroom erupted in excited discussion. Commander Vax's armor plates shifted rapidly. Explain your thinking, cadets. Kevin stepped forward. On Earth, submarine warfare taught us to use the ocean's layers for stealth and tactical advantage. Alice suggested we apply the same principle to gravitational fields. The star's gravity gave us natural acceleration and cover, just like ocean currents. And the enemy fleet was forced to break formation to chase us. Alice added, just like surface ships trying to hunt submarines. Their success in the simulation led to more collaborative opportunities. During break periods, Alice and Kevin found themselves surrounded by curious cadets from various species, all eager to learn more about Earth's military history. One afternoon, in the station's recreation area, they sat with a group that included Lyra and several other aliens. The conversation turned to space combat traditions. Your species fought underwater. A Cronus cadet named Grax asked, his armor plates rippling with curiosity. How did you see your enemies? We used sound waves, Kevin explained. Sonar technology. Actually, it's not that different from the gravitational wave detectors we use in space now. A crystalline quartz being chimed thoughtfully. Perhaps that is why humans adapt so quickly to space warfare. You already think in terms of invisible forces and indirect detection. As their reputation grew, so did the challenges. Some traditional instructors felt threatened by the way humans were influencing tactical doctrine. One such teacher was Professor Ix, an ancient Altarian known for his rigid adherence to established combat protocols. During a training exercise in the asteroid field near the station, Professor Ix decided to test the humans' abilities. He modified the safety protocols without authorization, introducing real danger into what should have been a controlled simulation. Alice and Kevin were leading a mixed team of cadets through a standard patrol exercise when their sensors detected actual explosive devices hidden among the asteroids. This isn't part of the simulation, Alice realized, her heart racing. Those are real charges. Kevin quickly analyzed the situation. The debris pattern would destroy half the training fleet. We need to act fast. Rather than retreat, they applied their unorthodox thinking to the crisis. Using techniques adapted from old mining operations on Earth, they calculated precisely targeted shots to shift the asteroid's orbits away from the explosive devices. Everyone, form up in pairs, Alice commanded the cadet fleet. We're going to create a gravitational chain reaction. Working together, the ships used coordinated tractor beams to create a cascade of controlled collisions. Each impact pushed the dangerous asteroids further from the explosives, while the debris was channeled into a safe trajectory away from the training area. When they returned to the station, Dean Zixthera was waiting. His tentacles pulsed with barely contained anger as Professor Aix was escorted to a disciplinary hearing. Your quick thinking saved lives today, the Dean told Alice and Kevin. More importantly, you showed how different tactical approaches can be combined effectively. Each species in your training fleet contributed their strengths to the solution. The incident became a turning point. Even the most skeptical aliens had to acknowledge that humanity's different perspective on warfare had value. The humans' ability to improvise and adapt proved to be an asset rather than a liability. In their quarters that evening, Lyra's skin glowed with excitement as she discussed the day's events with Alice. The way you combine our various abilities, it was like watching evolution happen in real time. Humans have a long history of learning from our differences, Alice explained. Earth's military forces became stronger when we learned to work together instead of fighting each other. A message flashed on their communication panel. The next semester's training schedule was being revised. New courses were being added, focusing on combining tactical doctrines from different species. Alice and Kevin were being asked to help develop the curriculum. "You're changing how the galaxy thinks about warfare," Lyra observed, her skin patterns showing deep respect. Alice smiled, remembering her first day at the college when everyone had thought humans were too primitive to contribute anything valuable. "We're not changing it," she said. "We're just helping everyone see that there's always more than one way to fight a battle." That night, as she looked out at the stars, Alice thought about how far humanity had come. Their very limitations had forced them to become more creative, more adaptable. Now those same qualities were helping them succeed in ways no one had expected. Kevin joined her at the viewport. "Ready for tomorrow? I heard they're letting us design a new combat simulation." "Ready," Alice nodded. "Let's show them what else humans can do." Outside, the purple nebula continued its eternal dance, while inside the Galactic War College, two humans were helping to reshape the future of space warfare, one unconventional idea at a time. Alice Baker was working late in the tactical analysis lab when she first noticed something strange. The college's quantum computer was processing an unusual amount of data during the night cycle, when most systems should have been in low-power mode. She mentioned it to Kevin Hughes the next morning during their daily planning session. The data patterns look like detailed scans of defense systems, but they're not part of any class assignment. Kevin frowned, pulling up his own datapad. "I've noticed some odd transmissions too, very well encrypted, bounced through multiple relays." They might have dismissed it as routine security measures if not for what happened in their advanced fleet operations class that afternoon. During a discussion of human naval tactics, an instructor from the Drachnid Empire asked unusually specific questions about Earth's orbital defense capabilities. "Something's not right," Alice whispered to Kevin after class. "That's the third time this week someone's asked about Earth's military infrastructure." They decided to investigate quietly, drawing on their combined experience with Earth's intelligence operations. Kevin set up passive monitoring programs, while Alice began mapping the suspicious data transfers. Their first breakthrough came with help from an unexpected source. Yithtal, a shy Mirian student who specialized in quantum communications, approached them in the mess hall. "I believe you've noticed the irregular data patterns." Yithtal's mental voice was barely a whisper. "I've seen similar encryption used by Drachnid military forces." Alice felt her heart rate increase. The Drachnid Empire was one of the oldest spacefaring civilizations, known for their complex political maneuvering. Why would they be gathering intelligence here? "The college has detailed information on every member species' military capabilities," Kevin pointed out. "It's the perfect place to study potential opponents." Working together, the three students began piecing together a disturbing pattern. The Drachnid Empire had placed several deep-cover agents within the college's faculty and staff. These infiltrators were systematically collecting tactical data on all species, but paying special attention to newly spacefaring races like humans. Late one night, while analyzing communication logs, Alice discovered something that made her blood run cold. "Look at these coordinates," she showed Kevin and Yithtal. "They're mapping approach vectors to Earth and our colonial systems. This goes beyond simple intelligence gathering." Yithtal's tentacles rippled with concern. "These are invasion preparations." The three students knew they needed help, but weren't sure who to trust. The infiltration seemed extensive, and they had no way to know how high it went. Alice finally decided to take their evidence to Dean Zixthera. Despite his intimidating reputation, the ancient Mirian had always shown fairness toward all species. The dean's office was dark when they arrived, lit only by the bioluminescent patterns flowing across his tentacles. He listened silently as they presented their findings. "We've been aware of Drachnid activities for some time," he finally admitted. "In fact, it's one reason we admitted humans to the college this year." The students exchanged confused looks. The dean's tentacles pulsed with complex patterns as he explained. "The Drachnid Empire has been expanding aggressively. They consider younger spacefaring races easy targets. We needed to evaluate humanity's potential as allies." His mental voice carried a note of satisfaction. "Your performance here has exceeded expectations." "So we were being tested?" Kevin asked, trying to keep the anger from his voice. "Tested and trained," the dean corrected. "Humanity's unique approach to warfare could be crucial in the coming conflict, but we needed to know if you could adapt to galactic-scale combat." Alice processed this information. "The Drachnids are planning to move soon, aren't they?" The dean's tentacles darkened. "Yes, we've detected increased fleet activity near their border systems. They're likely to strike within months." "Then we need to prepare," Alice said firmly. "Not just humans, but all the younger species they might target." "Agreed." The dean's mental voice carried approval. "I'm putting you three in charge of a special training unit. Officially, it's an advanced tactical study group. Unofficially, you'll be preparing defense strategies for vulnerable systems." They spent the next few weeks gathering trusted students from various species, focusing on those whose worlds might be Drachnid targets. The dean provided them with a secure training facility in a rarely used section of the station. Alice and Kevin taught their allies about human warfare principles, while learning about each species' unique military capabilities. Yithtal's expertise in quantum communications proved invaluable for developing secure coordination protocols. They were running a joint training exercise when they detected the first real Drachnid probe. The small stealth ship was carefully scanning the college's defenses, clearly gathering data for an attack. "They're moving faster than we expected," the dean announced during an emergency meeting. "The gathering fleet near their border is larger than our early estimates." "They'd probably realized we've discovered their infiltration," Alice suggested. "They'll want to strike before we can properly prepare." The dean's tentacles swirled with dark patterns. "Then we must accelerate our plans. Your training group is now an official tactical response unit. We need to get warning to the vulnerable systems." As they left the dean's office, Kevin turned to Alice. "Remember when we thought the hardest part would be passing our classes?" She managed a smile. "Well, we wanted to prove humans could handle galactic warfare. Looks like we're getting our chance." They spent the rest of the night coordinating with their allies, preparing for what they all knew was coming. The Drachnid Empire was about to learn that their easy targets weren't so easy anymore. Looking out at the purple nebula, Alice thought about Earth and her colonies. They were so new to space travel, still learning the basics of galactic warfare. But maybe that was their strength. The Drachnids expected to fight enemies who followed traditional space combat doctrines. They weren't prepared for human creativity combined with the unique abilities of other young species. "We'll be ready," she promised the stars. Behind her, the Tactical Response Unit continued their preparations, different species working together, learning from each other. The Drachnid Empire thought the Galactic War College would help them identify weak targets. Instead, it had created something they never expected: a united force of young species, led by humans who thought outside traditional boundaries. The real test was coming soon, and Alice Baker intended to prove that humanity's graduation from the college would be memorable indeed. As the threat of Drachnid invasion loomed closer, Alice Baker and Kevin Hughes transformed their tactical response unit into a full-fledged defense force. The dean gave them access to a previously restricted training facility deep within the space station, where they could prepare without drawing attention. "The Drachnid fleet will likely attack the college first," Alice explained to their gathered allies. "They'll want to prevent us from warning their other targets and eliminate the tactical knowledge stored here. The group had grown to include students from 12 different species, each bringing unique abilities and combat doctrines. Lyra's Altarian crystal technology could enhance shield systems. Grax, the Cronus cadet, understood advanced armor configurations. Yithtal's quantum communication skills were essential for coordinating their forces. Kevin worked with the engineering students to modify their training ships. "We're combining technologies in ways the Drachnids won't expect," he told Alice as they reviewed the modifications. Altarian crystals powering human-designed railguns, Cronus armor protecting Mirian sensor arrays. Their preparations faced a serious challenge when they discovered that some of their practice drills were being monitored. The Drachnid infiltrators were still active within the college, watching their every move. "We can use this to our advantage," Alice suggested during a secure meeting in the dean's office. "Feed them false information about our capabilities." The dean's tentacles swirled with approval. "A classic deception strategy. What do you propose?" They began running obvious training exercises that showcased traditional tactics while secretly practicing their hybrid warfare techniques in the restricted facility. The Drachnid spies dutifully reported on the visible drills, unaware of the real preparations happening elsewhere. Late one night, as Alice was reviewing sensor data, she noticed an anomaly in the nebula's radiation patterns. "Kevin, look at this. The background radiation is being disturbed in a regular pattern." Kevin studied the readings. "Cloaked ships. They're already moving into position." They immediately alerted the dean, who called an emergency meeting of the senior staff. "The attack will come sooner than expected," he announced. "Our long-range sensors detect major fleet movements near the Drachnid border." Alice's tactical response unit accelerated their preparations. They had developed new combat protocols that combined various species' strengths. Altarian ships would use their crystal technology to enhance human-style wolfpack tactics. Cronus vessels would protect more fragile Mirian sensor platforms, creating a web of advanced detection systems. "We need to protect the quantum computer core," Yithtal reminded them. "It contains tactical data on every member species. If the Drachnids capture it, they won't," Alice assured her friend. She and Kevin had developed special plans for defending the college's most vital systems. The dean approved their strategy, but added a warning. "The regular defense fleet won't be expecting your unconventional tactics. You'll need to coordinate carefully to avoid friendly fire incidents." This led to a new challenge: teaching their hybrid warfare techniques to the college's standard defense forces. They had to be subtle to avoid alerting the Drachnid spies, so they shared their innovations through seemingly routine training updates. Kevin worked with the fleet commanders, introducing elements of human naval tactics as historical studies. Alice focused on coordinating the different species ships into effective combat groups. "The key is flexibility," she explained during a briefing. "Each species has traditional roles in space combat, but we're going to switch those roles unexpectedly. The Drachnids won't know which ships to target first." Their preparations were tested sooner than expected. During what seemed like a routine patrol exercise, Yithtal detected unusual quantum fluctuations, multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. The Drachnid attack fleet emerged from hyperspace in a standard combat formation, exactly what they had prepared for. Alice immediately activated their response plan. "All ships, execute Protocol Omega," she commanded. The training fleet smoothly transitioned from practice maneuvers to actual combat positions. The Drachnid commanders hesitated, clearly surprised that the training ships were responding so quickly and effectively. Their formation was designed to overwhelm standard college defenses, not face an integrated multi-species combat force. Kevin coordinated the first counterattack. Altarian crystal ships charged their human-designed weapons using power configurations the Drachnids had never seen. Cronus warships protected smaller vessels that darted through the enemy formation, disrupting their carefully planned attack vectors. "They're adjusting their tactics," Yithtal reported, monitoring the quantum communications, "but they're still following standard Drachnid combat doctrine. That's their weakness." Alice realized. They relied too much on established protocols, pushed them off balance. The battle quickly evolved into a complex dance of ships and energy weapons. The Drachnid fleet was larger and more powerful, but Alice's forces were more adaptable. Every time the enemy adjusted to one tactic, they switched to another. The college's regular defense fleet arrived to find the training ships executing complex maneuvers that confused and split the Drachnid formation. Following the quietly shared protocols, they integrated smoothly into the battle. Main computer core is secure, Kevin reported. They're trying to breach the outer defenses, but our hybrid shield systems are holding. The turning point came when Alice recognized a pattern in the Drachnid fleet movements. They're following a standard withdrawal protocol. Target these coordinates. Their combined fleet struck at the exact moment the Drachnid ships began their retreat maneuver. The precision timing disrupted the enemy formation, forcing them to withdraw in disorder. As the Drachnid fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving damaged ships behind, the Dean's voice echoed through their communications. "Well done, cadets. But this was only their first attack. They'll be back with a larger force." Alice looked at her tactical display, already planning improvements to their defenses. The next battle would be harder, but they had proved that their combination of different species' abilities could work. "We'll be ready," she told her tired but proud crew. "And next time, we'll be even better prepared." The purple nebula swirled outside the station's viewports, its colors shifted by the energy weapons that had just been fired. Inside, a group of students from across the galaxy had just proved that unity and adaptability could overcome even the most powerful enemy. Kevin joined Alice at the command station. "Think they learned anything from this defeat?" "Probably," she smiled. "But not as much as we've learned about working together." The Tactical Response Unit began their post-battle analysis, knowing that their real test was still to come. But they had shown that the Galactic War College wasn't just a target. It was becoming a forge for a new kind of space warfare. 2 days after the initial Drachnid attack, Alice Baker stood in the college's main tactical center, studying the long-range sensor data. The enemy fleet was regrouping, pulling in reinforcements from their border systems. "They won't make the same mistakes twice," Kevin Hughes warned, joining her at the display. "Their next attack will be much stronger." Alice nodded. "But neither will we." "How are the modifications coming?" The Tactical Response Unit had been working around the clock to upgrade the college's defenses. They were applying lessons learned from the first battle, combining technologies in even more innovative ways. Lyra approached, her skin glowing with excitement. "The crystal matrix upgrades are complete. We've increased shield strength by 40% using human power distribution methods." The Dean floated into the tactical center, his tentacles pulsing with urgent patterns. Long-range sensors detect major fleet movements. "The Drachnids have gathered 3 battle groups." "More than we expected," Alice frowned, studying the data. "They're really committed to taking the college." "Not just the college," Yithtal added, her mental voice troubled. "We've detected smaller fleet elements moving toward other targets: Earth colonies, Altarian outposts, Cronus defense stations." This was what they had feared. The Drachnids were launching a coordinated attack against multiple younger species, hoping to overwhelm them before they could unite. "Time to implement Phase 2, Alice announced. Over the past weeks, they had secretly prepared for this possibility. Kevin activated a secure quantum channel. Hidden defense forces, trained in their hybrid tactics, were waiting near each potential target. As soon as the signal went out, these forces began moving to protect the threatened systems. "The Drachnids don't know about our secondary defense networks," Kevin explained to the gathered commanders. "They think each target is isolated and vulnerable." The main Drachnid fleet appeared 3 hours later, dropping out of hyperspace in an attack formation 3 times larger than their first assault. But this time, Alice's forces were fully prepared. "All ships, execute Protocol Lambda," she commanded. The combined fleet moved with practiced precision, breaking into smaller units that the Drachnids would have trouble tracking. The battle began with a furious exchange of energy weapons. Drachnid warships pressed forward, expecting to overwhelm the college's defenses with superior numbers. Instead, they found themselves facing constantly shifting combat groups. Human-inspired wolfpack tactics, enhanced by Altarian crystal technology, let smaller ships strike effectively against larger targets. Chroma's armored vessels protected Mirian sensor platforms that predicted and countered enemy movements. "They're trying to adapt," Yith-Tol reported, monitoring enemy communications, "but their command structure is too rigid. They can't match our flexibility." The turning point came when the Drachnids attempted to split their forces, sending a battle group to flank the college's defenses. Alice had anticipated this standard tactic. "Spring the trap," she ordered. Hidden within the nebula's radiation fields, a reserve force of ships waited. Using modified Mirian stealth systems combined with human submarine tactics, they had been completely undetectable. The reserve force struck the Drachnid flanking group from multiple angles, using the nebula's gravitational eddies to enhance their maneuvers. The enemy formation broke apart, their carefully planned attack dissolving into chaos. "Reports coming in from other sectors," Kevin announced. "The hidden defense forces are engaging Drachnid attack groups near Earth and Altarian space. They're using our combined tactics successfully." The Dean's tentacles swirled with approval. The Drachnids assumed each target would fight alone, using predictable methods. They never expected this level of cooperation and tactical innovation. The main battle continued for several hours, but the outcome was becoming clear. Unable to cope with the constantly changing hybrid tactics, the Drachnid fleet began taking heavy losses. "Enemy ships are powering up their hyperdrives," Yith-Tol reported. "They're retreating across all sectors." As the Drachnid fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind damaged vessels and debris, a cheer went up through the tactical center. They had not only defended the college but protected multiple vulnerable systems. The Dean called Alice and Kevin to his office after the battle. His tentacles glowed with formal patterns as he addressed them. "Your innovative approach to warfare has done more than win a battle," he said. "You've shown that different species working together are stronger than any single power. The Galactic Council has taken notice." He gestured, and a holographic display appeared, showing the Council's formal declaration. The Drachnid Empire was being sanctioned for their unprovoked aggression, and a new defense alliance was being formed among the younger spacefaring races. "They want you both to help coordinate the alliance's training program," the Dean continued. "But first, there's the matter of graduation." The graduation ceremony was unlike any in the college's history. Instead of traditional military displays, the students demonstrated their hybrid combat techniques, showing how different species could work together effectively. Alice stood at the podium as valedictorian, looking out at the assembled cadets and dignitaries. Representatives from various worlds had come to witness this historic event. "We came to the Galactic War College to learn about space warfare," she began. "Instead, we learned something more important. The greatest power in the galaxy isn't advanced technology or traditional tactics. It's the ability to adapt, to combine our strengths, and to work together in new ways." After the ceremony, Alice found herself assigned as the college's first human instructor. Her first class would focus on integrated tactical operations, teaching the next generation of officers how to combine different species' capabilities effectively. Kevin was appointed to coordinate with the new defense alliance, helping other worlds prepare for future threats. Lyra, Yith-Tol, and their other allies took similar roles, spreading their combined knowledge throughout the galaxy. "Did you ever think we'd end up changing galactic warfare?" Kevin asked Alice as they watched ships arriving for the next term. "I just wanted to prove humans could handle space combat," she smiled. "Instead, we proved that everyone is stronger when we work together." The Purple Nebula continued its eternal dance outside the college's viewports. Inside, a new era of galactic warfare was beginning, shaped by the unexpected cooperation between humans and their alien allies. In her office, Alice began preparing for her first class. On her desk sat a crystal from Lyra, a quantum processor from Yithtal, and other gifts from her fellow graduates. Each represented a different approach to warfare, now being combined in ways no one had imagined before. The Galactic War College had taught them about space warfare, but humanity had taught the galaxy about the power of adaptation and unity. As new cadets arrived from various worlds, eager to learn these combined tactics, Alice knew that space warfare would never be the same. And somewhere out in space, the Drachnid Empire was learning a valuable lesson. Underestimating younger species could be a costly mistake, especially when those species learn to work together.